I'm going to call the meeting to order here of the Planning and Zoning Commission at 7 o'clock here. So first, second order of business, is a roll call.
David Larson.
Present.
John Meyer.
Here.
Douglas Benschoter. Stephanie Garner.
Present.
David Huser.
Here.
Kate Payne.
Here.
Kathy Olson.
Here.
Thank you, Paige. Item C of our agenda is the approval for the meeting tonight. I ask for a motion on that.
So moved.
Approval. Second.
Third.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, that motion carries. Item D is the approval of the minutes from our May 2nd meeting. Ask for a motion on that.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, that motion carries as well. All right. So the next item is item E, which is our public hearing. I'll just go over a real basic kind of ground rules of the way we do that. So I'll open the public hearing. If you'd like to speak, just approach the commission here to the microphone, state your name, your address as it applies, and then go ahead and talk through whatever. And once we finish with all the comments, etc., we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll kind of entertain some discussion. And typically in our meetings, sometimes we reach back out and ask questions, so that's certainly something that can come up as well. So anyway, I just wanted to say that, and then go ahead now and open the public hearing for a review of a special provisional use for ground-mounted solar system at 1916 20th Street Northwest.
Hello, my name is Mike Langrick, and we live at 1916 20th Street, and this is my wife Haley, and we have been approached to put on ground mount solar system in, and we have chose a location that's towards the front of the property due to the fact that the rest of our property we utilize for space with our kids. I am very into youth sports, and we have like the back of the property set as a football field and the other side as a baseball field right now. And this spot in our property is a spot where we're not currently utilizing at all. So to minimize the appearance from the road is why we stacked them versus having one long run. We decided to do a 16 panel and a 14 panel behind each other to kind of minimize the site from 20th Street.
Okay. It's fine. Like I said, we may end up asking some questions here in a moment, which is fine. Hopefully you guys can answer those as you go through.
Yeah.
Hi guys, I'm Chris Dia with Midwest Solar Installers. I'm helping Haley and Mike put in the solar system.
Okay.
So like Mike had said, we broke it up into 2 arrays for them to minimize the view from the road, because I know that's a concern you guys had. Also, we're not building a solar farm. We're only offsetting their basic needs. We're not building this thing too big. We've done a lot of these projects throughout the Midwest. And we're looking forward to getting this done for them. So I appreciate you guys' time and everything. So if you have questions, just let me know.
Sounds good. All right, anyone else to speak about this item on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and then we'll begin discussion as the commission here.
I will let you know there were no public comments that were received from notices sent.
Okay, and I was gonna ask, and I skipped it, would you walk us through the agenda? Just kind of per our usual here.
As they mentioned, looking to put in a ground-mounted solar system at 1916 20th Street. As you'll see, our code looks at certain items to kind of go based off of guidelines while looking into these special provisional uses.
Perfect, thank you. So, I don't know, maybe I'll kick it off. I took some notes on this. Man, I just wanted to go ahead and discuss it here in the forum of the meeting. So, commission-wise, when I look at the code under alternative energy, on section D, if everybody wants to get there maybe quickly, it does not state ag, and this is an A1 zoned property. For whatever reason, that is not in there. And as we go through and discuss this particular one and other topics outside of this particular request, there's a lot of discussion on the special provisional use and how they fit and where they should be. And this is one I just noticed that it says residential. One of the, I don't have it up in front of me. There was 3 listed.
Commercial and industrial.
Commercial and industrial, thank you. So, I don't know. I don't know what that really means to this request for a special provisional use. I feel it may just be something that we need to look at as a commission as we move forward, but I wanted to get that in front of everybody, I guess, and get thoughts and feedback here.
Are you saying there's nothing in the code that limits their ability to do it? That there's nothing that says they can or can't? Or it has to go through any sort of
It
process
says it's only
whatsoever?
permitted in those other uses. It's not permitted in A. Is that correct?
Or is it silent?
Well,
just silent.
that's the thing, I think it's kind of silent, so
Oh,
is
okay.
it, as
guess
Dave
I-
brought this up in, this code section, I talked to staff and they're like, well, just bring it to the commission as a special provisional use, because yes, it doesn't clearly state that it needs to come. So the question is do we put it through a special provisional use process, because it's a residentially use rather than a residentially zoned? Or is it just approved as a building permit? That doesn't have to go through a special provisional use process.
Have there been other owners with A properties, agricultural properties, that have put them up and they didn't do a thing? They just did it?
So, I can speak on behalf of that, our neighbor, which I did take a picture before we came, if anybody wants to view that. Our neighbor did put up a solar panel system right across the street from where we live, and he is essentially the last house in city limits. We're like the second to last house, he is the last house within city limits, and his is on top of a shed though, so it's not on ground, but it's actually on top. We can see that from our property.
So yes, that was Bill Lowe's house. I remember when that one came through, looked at this code section, it met all the code items, so then it was approved with a building permit.
Yeah.
But yes, it was roof mounted rather than that ground
Right.
mounted.
I mean,
But we have not had other ag ground mounted.
I guess I look more at, and I think maybe we ought to clarify the ordinance, but this is a residential use that happens to be, zoned ag. The parcel more resembles a residential use. I guess I'm not terribly bothered by that, but I agree. I think maybe it's something that needs to be addressed in an ordinance amendment eventually. I guess I am more concerned with it, looking at the zoning ordinance that says the locations of ground-mounted systems are limited to the rear of the property and should avoid being in eyesight from the street. I mean, it doesn't really give a, I understand the special provisional use, we can vary that. But I do feel fairly strongly about that. Also, that there's also a provision that says screening. Solar systems shall be screened from street view to the extent possible without reducing efficiency. There's supposed to be a landscaping plan reviewed by staff. One of the things that I know was that the Bartles Lutheran Home Anna Estates plan has a street, and there's gonna be residential units that are gonna be budding along that property line eventually. And shouldn't there be, to me, there should be screening so that those patios on the back of their houses aren't staring at that array. I guess the other thing I do look at is I understand that, you know, people like to do a lot of things with their property, but there are rear yard spaces that this could be put. And, you know, screening could be, you know, it could be set back far enough from the south property line so that the screening would be, you know, at least break up vision and not impair the array. So anyway, those are my feelings. I would have a hard time supporting this as it's presented in the plans.
How far back is it set from the property line? I didn't see a dimension there when I flipped through it.
That shed is probably about 30 feet from the south property line.
Yeah, but how far is it from 20th Street?
Oh, from 20th Street.
It would be the front yard setback, I think is what it is.
Yeah, if you look at the,
If you go to the
the main part of the
plans.
house is probably right at 60 feet back. And so based on the plans, looks like it might go in front of that front plane of the house slightly. So probably 50 to 60. And real quick, back to the zoning classification on the code, then we can start going on to these. The code says residential, commercial, and industrial zoning classifications, not zoning districts. If you look on Beacon, the classification is considered residential. So that might be, do we need to clarify it in the code a bit? But that's where I would see that, yes, we could go through this process.
That was part of the Annaholt farm, which was all broken up between Bartles and the other sales, so I think, right? Yeah. So, I mean, so it really is residential, it's just, it carried the
And
ag.
zoning,
Zoning.
district versus classification.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as setback, I think, are you going right, kind of close to the edge front of the home?
Yeah,
Frontage.
closer to the shed.
Okay, so about 60,
Further away from the road.
so at least 60 feet from the property line, and then however wide that ditch area is.
I was surprised Bartles didn't, you know, comment on it or anything, because I had the same concern John had because of the housing that will be along there.
So there's been some mixed decisions of what they're gonna put in that area. I mean, they've run some different things by,
Okay. But I didn't.
for that front area, but no, they did not have a response.
So, maybe a question for you guys since everyone's here. So, as you probably can see in the code right now, there's a big difference between a ground-mounted system set of rules and then a roof-mounted or building-mounted set of rules. Is there a reason for ground-mounted? Is that, like, what are the pros of that in this particular application versus being on a shed or something else? I guess if you can maybe walk me through that.
Sure, so the utility pole, you know, these are the grid-tied systems, so we're looking at eliminating our electric bill, so the bill will be close to $9.
Could you come up to the mic? I had a hard time hearing.
Yeah, sorry. So we're looking at, you know, helping them eliminate their electric bill, that's why people go solar. And with the utility pole being there in the middle of the property, that's the ease of use to actually get to solar. We got to do a grid, what's called a grid-tied system, so we have to connect to the utility. And the pole is right there at the middle, and that's what we're doing, is we're trenching from the ground mount to the pole to be hooked up to the grid. So everything that they produce will get used at the property first, and anything extra will go to the utility, and they'll be credited that to be able to use at night or in the wintertime at no additional charge. So to keep,
I think the question was, is there a reason it couldn't have been on the south side of the barn?
yes, to meet their needs, on their energy needs, the ground mount is the best solution for them and most economical. Putting it on the barn wouldn't get them what they need to produce with solar.
Okay.
I mean, is it a significant difference, or is it?
It
you know,
is, yeah. When we do the ground mount, we can get away with using less panels. And we put it at a 3rd-degree angle, which is optimal here in Iowa. So it sits there and collects all day long. Another thing we did was, was we reduced the array to 2 arrays. Instead of having one big giant one, we have 2 small ones. I mean, it's only 15 panels and 14 panels. So it's not gonna be an eyesore or anything like that. That is the best location for the array.
And the barn is more of a curved roof, isn't it? So
Correct, yeah.
You wouldn't be able to be placed on one.
Yeah, it's not ideal at all. They would not get the production that they need. I think it'd be more of an eyesore there than what you're gonna see on the ground, to be honest with you.
What about the screening issue? There are no plans for that, or?
No, no plans. I mean, when I went to the property and looked at it, it is pretty far off the road. I mean, I don't know how far you guys need it off the road, but it is set back in a good distance. When we go to install it, I can make sure they install it closer to the shed there and not as close to the road as the plans show. But no, there's no plans to have any screening or anything like that. I think there's some weeds growing that might block the view, to be honest with you. There is, no one really
That's, in all honesty, that's been an eyesore for us, I mean, we are in city limits, but we've seen nothing but, 5-foot weeds the last 2 years, and, we've not said one thing, about that. And in reality, I work for Bartles, or I help Bartles out, and, if it comes down to it, and they, ask someday, hey, did you do something, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, we work hand in hand, and I do remodeling and stuff for Bartles, so, they're well aware of that I live there, and they, again, I mean, you can tell by your comments, they haven't said anything, when this has been brought to the attention, but someday, I'm a reasonable person, if that's what they request and decide, then, we may do it at that time, but for right now, like I said, it's been an eyesore for us, and we haven't called the city on it, we haven't said anything, we've just dealt with the tall weeds as other neighbors have as well there. So, kind of goes both ways.
Gather some that they work at eliminating noxious weeds, and other places they don't, so I don't know what.
How, just out of my curiosity, how tall is that shed down there currently versus how tall the solar panels will be? Because the solar panel system, is that right at like?
The shed has 8-foot sidewalls.
8 sidewalls.
Yeah, so, your peak is probably 10, it's a 412 pitch, it's 10 to 12 feet is the peak of that. And that's another thing that, I discussed, due to the size of the current shed that we have, if I was able to actually be able to build onto that shed and have the panels across, I could, but I'm actually tied with the amount of space, shed space that I can have, so.
So that kind of maybe is a good lead into another question I had. So as I was looking through the solar system plans, there's, it's super specific, but I was questioning the leg length, like above grade. I think it shows in the table that it's 97 inches. Is that accurate? Sorry, I'm trying to find the
That's
sheet.
on page S501,
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, there's the
number 17.
2 rays there, looking at the 26-foot.
Yeah, but you're looking at the total height of it.
Well, I was trying to understand the leg length, and then I understand the 30 degrees. I guess overall, like on sheet R004, or the last sheet, it shows the different angles and the different leg lengths, and they didn't jive being equal, not to make you flip through 100 pages there. But I was just trying to understand how much is it above grade, And then what's the highest point at that 30 degrees? If you could look at that a moment. Or if you know from experience, I guess, how tall that would be.
Yeah, it's 102, 102.
Okay.
And that's the very top of the panel.
So that means the, like, H1 would be the leg length, it would only be 57. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's a typo.
that other one isn't the right height on sheet. Sorry,
As
S501.
501. Under the
Oh, okay.
keynotes number 17 says a like length above grade is 97. So that might be total.
Well, 100, yeah, so 102 based on the, so it gets a lot closer to the ground, I guess, in essence here, I guess. And that was really the root of my question, so.
Do you need it more at like a 25 or 20 degree tilt?
No, I was simply just trying to figure out what this last table on the last sheet of your plans, the R004, made the most sense to me for total height at the angle, but then I couldn't get the leg length to work out based on that other print, so
Oh, gotcha.
I was just really trying to understand which one was right, because I thought 8 foot at that H1 is a big height.
Yeah, I see it's going into the ground there, yeah.
Yeah.
Pile driven, yeah.
So, okay, so that makes sense, so 102, which,
8.5.
yeah, yeah. So basically the sidewall of the shed
Yeah.
is close. Okay, so this will probably not be a very popular statement with some, but I'm gonna say it anyway. So I want to be the advocate for use of ground for current zoning, right? It's zoned what it is for a reason. I'm cognizant of future uses and other impacts, but that all takes time, right? So I would feel, in this particular case, they should be able to use their property as they wish. As far as doing something because of the neighboring property, I don't think that applies. I feel the code is the code, so we need to have this discussion on screening. So that is absolutely the right thing, but to screen because of a future use of a piece of property that isn't developed, I feel shouldn't prevent or shouldn't force this request to implement something. Now, what I can't rectify is what's in the code, right? So it does state there should be a plan, there should be some sort of screening.
Well, and the location, it says that they're limited to the rear of the property.
Is that specific to where it's allowed, though?
That's any solar, ground-mounted solar system.
So it kind of goes along with our accessory use structures. Our accessory use structures section of the code also says the rear of the yard. How we've handled that, though, is we've allowed sheds in the side and rear yards. So this, I would say, okay, rear or side, if it follows our accessory structures.
It's definitely not between the house and the street, right? Which is kind of.
Especially if they're pushing it back.
Right, which feels like frontage, so.
Excuse me just a minute. Pete, what would you say if there was a variance that would come to you? How would you look at it?
Rather not right now. This is your discussion.
No, I'm just curious to how
It's a residential lot. We look at the codes, when we changed some code stuff, that the zoning administrator was able to deal with the roof mount ones because we were getting a lot of them and there was pretty no-brainer about those. But we left the ground mounts in our discussion, and I think, Dave, I think you were in some of that discussion too, that we would treat the ground mounts as accessory buildings. And that's why we're looking at them that way.
Okay. Well, thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I was curious what your.
I get to have my discussion next week.
So it would not be treated as a variance though, because any variances per se would be approved through this process. It wouldn't actually go.
It's a special provisional use.
Special provisional use, I was just curious of what they would say if, if it was, happened to be a variance, I was just curious what he would look at.
So, there are some examples that have came through before the change where the discussion was, that it couldn't be on the front side of a house for a roof mounted, street side, right? And we have seen some of those come through where it's a south facing house, it makes sense to put them on the front. I kind of feel like that's a discussion point, to the rear and the side yard here, as well. Just another tidbit, I guess, on,
But there's ones on the backside that, like
That go right
over
to
on-
somebody's
that I
house.
can see from my house,
Right.
just,
especially on cul-de-sacs. and-
yeah.
And-
So
and-
it
Overlaps.
doesn't bother me, but it's hard to, keep it, having any exposure totally, but. To get things on the table, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the special provisional use to install a ground-mounted solar system at 1916 20th Street Northwest.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign?
No.
All right, are you clear, or do we need a roll call? Sounds good. All right, so that motion passes, understanding the discussion and the impacts there. I don't know if this is the right section for it or not, but I do propose that we include some changes to clarify the code for a couple things, side and rear, and possibly the A1, or eliminate all the zonings and make them all special provisionals, et cetera. So, just for the notes there. we talked about it. All right, item F.
Well, I would add to that,
I was like, we can have a quick, since we're on that same
Sure.
topic, do you want me to get those drafted and prepared to come back quickly? Within the next couple of meetings?
A couple minutes.
Couple of meetings?
Well, so,
That good.
so,
Let me type it
I don't
away.
want to cut Dave off, but, so, the reason I was even thinking that, I guess, is too, because we have the A1 special provisional in our agenda tonight, right? As drafted, so, whether it gets added to that section, that ground mounted solar is either allowed or not allowed, or we look at, alternative energy
Yeah.
as itself.
Well,
So,
to me, it ought to go into
The special-
the solar energy system where that thing currently has those uses listed, we just need to add,
and so, yeah, that, I didn't,
Make
Dave,
it
after
clear.
we had talked, I looked to try to see when this code was, originated, I wasn't finding information on why ag was looked out. But the more I look into it, it says zoning classifications, so how many ag classification properties are still in city limits? We can definitely add that in, but I think that's where we look at Beacon and, how it's tax classified.
classified, but I think that most of those that we've looked at in the past that are ag zone, but
But-
classifications are residential.
Residential. And that's where this is tonight, which is abiding by this code section.
Sure, the alternative energy section.
Yes, yes. But that would lead to, like they had mentioned, Bill Lowe's, he did it roof mounted. If he came to do it ground mounted, I bet his is still ag classified. So would we have wanted his to come through this process? Yeah, his is ag classification.
well, and, the county zoning ordinance basically allows any ag use to put up an array that meets their own needs,
Right.
similar. If they want to put up a commercial, then they have to go through a different process. So, that's, I don't want to get too divergent from their uses either, so.
Right.
Yeah. And, at the same time, I think it should be encouraged, right? So if we can, clarify this section, the alternative energy section, to be more clear, I guess it's gonna benefit the commission, it's gonna benefit the city, it's gonna benefit, the residents, right? Because it'll just be.
So I would say just take the classifications out and just say all of them require it then.
Yeah, that would be kind of my proposal.
Rather than adding ag into there, just remove residential, commercial, industrial classifications and just all ground mounted within city limits would have to come through this process.
And don't get me wrong, I support this, but they could have taken a 30 by 30 hunk in the northwest corner of their property, fenced it off, and it would have worked just fine, and I would have supported it fully. Or they could trim that tree and put it on the other side of the chicken house, and I would have supported it fully. Sticking it out in the front yard when the ordinance says we don't want them there, that's what bothered me.
I understand.
There's lots of places for it on his property.
Yeah, and I think, maybe as we look forward, especially on larger parcels like this one is, maybe side and rear, is a more feasible option, moving forward, again, to encourage alternative energy
Right.
uses.
Well, I'm sure they didn't want the baseball field be hitting.
I mean, putting it in the corner of the outfield to me wouldn't have been a big deal, but anyway, that's their judgment, not mine.
Those high flying balls can be part of solar array panels, maybe. All right. So, any other discussion on that as we have a few takeaways here, so. Okay, moving on to regular business, we have a Plat of Survey revising the boundary of Parcel EE at 1410 Round Horn Street. Paige, can you walk us through the agenda?
Yeah, so the owner applied for a building permit to put in a screened-in pergola. While reviewing that, noticed that it was closer than 10 feet to that property line, which because it was closer than 10 feet to the house, it has to abide by the primary structure setbacks of 10 foot. This is what prompted that plat of survey because he owns both of those lots. So he is proposing to add another 5 foot onto his parcel EE to meet that setback, which will still leave the other parcel on one. You don't want to bother Pete and asking for that.
Convenient. All right, so,
We want to have
If he wants to speak.
Rick come up and
yeah, it's outside of the public hearing, but if you want to say anything, you're welcome to.
I will. First off, I didn't want a pergola. But I'm here fighting for her.
Sure.
Say yes.
I didn't even know what a pergola was until I bought it. So I own 300 feet. I own the 100 that the main house is on and 200 of the property to the south. And it's an aluminum structure with a screen on one side for protection from people seeing in, and it fits on the slab. It's pretty portable because it's doesn't need a foundation. It just bolts to the concrete so the wind won't blow it away. But so that will fit on the slab. I'm kind of in a quandary. Can't quite get it far away from the house. If I could get it another 30 inches away from the house, then I would only have a 5 foot setback. But rather than try to mess with the concrete and do all that, I just would like to move the lot line 5 feet south and make the one lot 195 feet and the other 105.
This is a question for Paige. When we went through all those vacations, we talked about, what was it,
Multi-lot deed agreement.
yes. Could that have worked for lot 6 and 7?
We don't want to do those when it's a buildable lot.
Oh, okay.
It's not a real good way to do things. I've always been kind of told no unless it's those small applications.
Yeah, okay. Well, I support promoting Terry's business, so, you know.
Okay, any other discussion? Guys, I know this is a fairly complex way to accommodate, that's a good word, thank you, Dave.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the Plat of Survey revising the boundary of the Parcel EE at 1410 Round Horn Street.
I'd second that.
All right, the motion's been moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, that motion passes as well. Thank you. All right.
Exactly.
Item 2 in our, yeah, thank you for coming. Item 2 in our regular business here is a plat of survey for parcel GG, parcel HH. So this one is 220 and 222 9th Street Southwest here in Waverly. It's the first one we'll discuss.
Yep.
Page,
So
yeah, sorry, go
Bo
ahead.
was unable to come tonight. So I told him I'll try to help address the questions. He was open, and if there are unanswered questions from you guys, we can bump it back in meeting if needed. He owns the duplex and would like to do a plat of survey, kind of like what he prepared for Centennial Oaks and some of those others where it becomes 2 single-family detached or attached units. His immediate plans is to continue renting it. However, he saw by doing this step, it would open up to the potential of selling each side separately in the future to help with the affordable housing. As you can see, Lindsay Kaler has been brought in with the building official to determine if it was built correctly to do the single family attached. I also confirmed with Public Works Director Justin McGlone to make sure that water and sewer services were being taken care of in that agreement. And he was satisfied with the agreement that was put in place.
Will they be splitting the water and sewer, or is it split now?
One of them, it might be the next one, was split. This one, I believe, was not split. They're gonna put a shut off on the other side.
Is there gonna be an agreement, because it'd be a common sewer line? I mean,
Yes.
we had this problem come up probably 20, 25 years ago, where we required them to put in separate water and sewer to each side. And so I think I believe it's the building code. And then also, my other concern is whether they have the firewall on both sides, all the way up through the attic to the roof. And, because that's another issue that can create problems, and a fire on one side that goes up over and comes into the other side, and then who's at fault? Or is the city at fault because we didn't require it? And is there the required firewall? I was asking John if he knew from the building code what is required. So I think those have to make sure. I don't care if the building inspector says, they were built that way. I want to make sure that the city's taken away from the liability there.
The common wall agreement is pretty clear that it's joint and it's their responsibility. If there's fire, if there's any other casualty, physical damage, deterioration, they gotta take care of it themselves. The issue becomes is if there is a fire destroys the wall, who's gonna make sure somebody isn't living in it while it's not repairable and all those kinds of things?
Isn't it a life safety question more than it is a property question?
Right.
Dave's right, if it were
Yeah.
to be built new, it would have a full,
But we
Fire
required
separation
we
wall.
required when that they wanted to separate it, and require that they had to go up and go into the attic and,
and take it all the way to the deck.
yeah. So, I'm concerned about the liability of the city if something should happen down the road that they didn't do it. I don't care if it was not that, set up that way when they build it. It needs to be if they want to do it to where it's separate. deeds, I guess, in the common law agreement, so.
Have we done other ones like this?
Well-
Did we check, I mean, my question, and,
So like
This covers
Centennial Oaks Estates that we just
Yeah, we
did.
just did that.
but that one had separate utilities, didn't it? And separate,
Those were all individually owned, yeah.
Those were,
Right.
right,
Oh, because
so,
they were the kind of, so they would have built.
Those were
built correctly.
condos, yeah.
but this is different.
this is
Yeah.
a
This is a
duplex,
rental.
right?
This is a rental
But-
converted into,
My question,
Built as a
to
duplex?
build on what Dave said, I think that
Oh, good.
from a building code point of view, it would be much more easy to evaluate this, in my mind, if you could understand where the differences are to retroactively do this to a building versus what it would be if you had to build it new. And if the water and the sewer and the separation party wall, were constructed adequately, it would be a lot easier to review this and feel confident that it was safe.
right.
So this wasn't built as a duplex or as,
It was built
It
as
is a duplex.
Yeah, it was built in 77 according to Beacon, and it looks like it probably was a Wausau modular. I mean, based on the pitch of the roof and,
but
I think it was, if I remember right.
Yeah.
I remember when
I mean,
it,
yeah, it was built as a duplex, but it was
okay, maybe,
owner on one side or rental units or whatever. you
I should
call
ask
it.
that differently.
That's
So
what it was
are
originally.
duplexes required to have separate water and sewer?
Nowadays,
They used to run single
Yeah.
sewer and water in and then split them in the basement for
Yeah.
duplexes.
For a duplex?
Today, I believe that
They-
they are requiring us to separate.
Right,
correct,
that's my understanding too.
Okay.
yes.
And then the construction of the wall that separates them is probably different if it's an ownership situation versus just a rental separation. I mean, I think that separate units still have a 1 or 2 hour wall between them, but,
Does it go all the way?
Yeah,
Yeah.
to the deck, roof deck or not? I wonder.
well, more than that, it's, how long does it take for fire to pass from one side to the other? And are the utilities separated in 2 parts of the wall? Are the utilities, the electric running through the wall on both sides? Is it split? There's all sorts of things that it could conceivably trigger.
Sure. So whose ultimate responsibility, I understand the concern and support that as well, but from a, we're the land use and zoning group, right? It's not necessarily our role to interpret code line by line, especially for a vintage structure, right? So where does that fall? Just for the discussion, I know.
I don't know,
Building
to
code
me, it's a building code issue, and we're not enforcing building code, we're looking at land use. And frankly, affordable housing, turning these into separate units, complies to the, quote, land use issue, I mean, in the zoning, so. But I agree that we don't want to do something that would be, well,
Right.
the safety issue to me is a building department and building code issue, and that is not part of the zoning ordinance.
but
Right.
where does that then get raised as the issue?
Well, it's with
When
the
it's
building
purchased
official.
as an individual unit?
Right, so do you do your inspections? Does the insurance look at those in order to separate the two?
Yeah, so I think, to support Dave's point here too, and I agree too, is it's like it was built as one thing and then to come through this process as another thing triggers all of these questions, which are absolutely the right questions. Again, from a just, resident safety perspective, right? That this change is significant to how it was built, to how it was even used, to what it's gonna become.
If
So-
we recommend that it's okay to do it conceptually from a planning and zoning point of view, and it's consistent with what the zoning ordinance would allow, is there a next step that triggers a review of the actual building code? Because in my experience, if you change the use of a building, that it triggers a review of the construction and the way it's built to be consistent, to get an occupant, because your occupancy is changing in a way. It's not
Right.
quite the same, it's still R, but
Do we know if that happens?
Is there anything that triggers that to happen?
I would imagine that probably doesn't happen with just the Plat of Survey, it would be when the deed goes to get recorded.
Insurance.
Well, I mean, insurance is gonna.
Insurance is gonna do
The
it too.
insurance company, if you're gonna sell them off separately, they're gonna pretty much go, was this
Yeah.
built pre-full fire break between, or is it just a base wall? They're gonna tell people that they're gonna have to have an inspection done, structural inspection, and they're gonna have to make a full separation.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to then, what is the appropriate process, right? I mean, should that stuff happen before it comes to the commission for a split, or does it assumably happen after? The assuming part is the uncomfortable section.
Well, then you look back to the one that we recently did for them. That was built in the 70s. That might not have the right firewall.
And which one was that one?
That was on, up in
Second Avenue.
Northeast.
Yeah, but see,
Yeah.
that was just a
Second Avenue.
zoning
Second Avenue.
change, and that's the next one.
That's the next one on this
Oh,
agenda.
okay, yeah,
So
right,
we
yeah.
haven't done that
Yeah.
one yet, which,
Yeah.
that was just the zoning change first.
Yeah.
He had just indicated that he'd probably be back with a plat.
So I think it's worth a few questions with Bo. I know he's not here and able to be here. Does anyone else feel that way? That we
You
have
said
some-
he would be no problem if we tabled it until next meeting, right?
Yeah, when he reached out and said, hey, sorry, I'm no longer able to come tonight, he goes, do we need to push it off a month? I said, I can start the initial discussions. If there's additional questions, we'll push it back to August, and he was in agreement with that.
Yeah, I don't like to push, but I think these are good questions that need, not only maybe,
And he as the owner.
Right.
And the attorney would have those better than me. But I can reach out to Lindsay also to get the specifics. Did you go look how it was built, or
look,
get
yeah.
those specifics from her? As well as from Justin, I can have him show me, rather than just saying the agreement is worked out, I can ask him specifically, where are those services lines? What are you doing to...
Because I'd like to understand that process a little bit better, because I think it could, be something we see more often, potentially. So having that kind of ironed out as like, this is done in this order, or must be in place, because this is what's gonna happen once it occurs, right?
I have a separate sort of question, which has to do with the conversation about creating affordable housing. Isn't it already affordable housing?
As a rental, but not as
Ownership.
owner occupied.
Is that more affordable? Or is it making it less affordable?
If
Or
someone
does
wants
it
to be a
just sound
home.
nice?
Yes, as a former landlord, it would be the same, but.
Well, I think it's also kind of
As a
feel
landlord, I
good
hate them
thing
to
about
lose
doing why
money.
you do it too, so I mean,
Say that again?
I think it's kind of a feel-good thing that they say, oh, this is what maybe we're gonna do to make us feel good that we approve it. I don't know, but,
Like warm and fuzzy.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I just,
Yeah.
I don't care, I mean, just be honest is my, I would rather.
Right, and that is something that staff discusses as
What
well.
is the
I
real
know,
reason? It's not about affordable housing,
Right.
this is the
right,
Well,
fact.
in theory, if you rent it, it's probably less affordable,
with the
because the
rent.
landlord wants to make a profit.
Off of that mortgage.
Who's serving his debt relief, his debt service.
Could be, but I just, yeah.
So yeah, do we want to,
Well, I would move that actually items 2 and 3 be tabled to the next meeting to get answers to the building code question and utility question.
Yeah, and really, the part I agree, and the part I would add to that is, just a little bit about the process, who's responsible for,
Where in that process is
What are
that
the
gonna come
triggering
up?
events?
yeah.
Well, when you stop and think about it, I know that when insurance comes into play, But, you know, if they just say, yep, it's covered, and then a fire happens and it isn't,
Then what?
yeah. I mean, I wanna get the city's liability.
Yeah,
you know.
I agree.
But,
Yeah.
you know,
And again, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but we could see more of these, so to me, fundamentally, knowing exactly the process is important, so.
Yep. So we had a motion by John.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of tabling till next month, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, none opposed. Those are tabled until our August meeting. So now we are on, make sure I'm right here, item 4, which is the Plat of Survey for Parcel PP. Paige, could you talk us through that, Melanie?
Yeah. Okay, so I don't have a ton of background information on this one because it just popped up.
It's pretty clear.
From my understanding, Bill has had previous conversations with the school. As you can see on that beacon aerial, the back or east section of Southeast School property is part of the city trail system. The city has always maintained that. Now with the elementaries being moved, I think when this was up in the air, not sure what was going on with it, the city wants to make sure that we maintain that in our ownership in case the school ever sells off the rest of that school parcel. So it's just parceling off, and you know it kind of goes to the southwest. That's just to keep the entire trail system in, and our access point will be for that city-owned parcel to the south of Southeast School.
Thank you.
This one seems really easy to me.
Yeah.
Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the Plat of Survey, Parcel PP located at 809 4th Street Southeast, Waverly, Iowa, to the City Council. Second.
All right, the motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, that motion passes.
I didn't feel bad, I was sneaking that one in there a little bit. A day or two after the agenda was out.
Will the deer still be able to cross the property line?
The signs.
you gotta be careful when you're walking on that
Oh,
property.
it's,
It's,
I mean, they bed down in that Haney property and go back into the ground. I mean, it's wicked.
I came home with about 4 ticks one day walking through.
Oh, man.
But
Okay.
Need more possums.
need more possums,
Need more
absolutely.
possums. All right, so this gets us to item 5, under regular business, which is review of the Special Provisional Use Code. I wouldn't bother with the agenda memo on this one in my mind, I guess. We've looked at these, talked through these. This is the second time they've came through. So I went through and read these. I'll start, I guess. And my note is not gonna be super shocking, but the formatting is still weird.
Yep.
So explain to me when that process gets fixed.
Codification of the whole code. Carla is starting at the beginning and fixing out the formatting for all of them. So I took the formatting as it currently is and just left it alone. And she will do that whole codification as she gets to the zoning section.
And when does that happen? When it,
She has started at the beginning, she's going by chapter. We're chapter 100, will be a ways down the list.
okay. So what happens in the meantime? Like if this passes, right?
It's gonna get put in with the
as is.
as is. Is there specific, I mean, I know from each section to section are kind of messed up. I don't know what formatting they're creating the entire code in.
Sure, I understand that. So what I notice is like in some sections, like R2 and R3, like the headings are bold in one and not bold in the other. Which again, is just,
Yeah.
it reads poorly in my opinion. And then there's, the one that bothers me more than that, I guess, is, and I didn't take a note on this one, is there's, where it's like an indented section and then it like is just randomly starts the sentence way indented and kind of jogs back and forth.
The words seem all to be correct, but the
Correct.
appearance is ragged,
It's
The
different,
formatting.
so-
Yeah.
ragged.
It's inconsistent, how about
Yeah,
that?
I agree.
But if they have the process established moving forward for how it will work through the whole codification of everything, then it seems to me we don't mess with that. We let them,
Well, and
Continue that
formatting
process.
isn't something that needs to kind of be approved.
Right.
I mean, if we're approving the wording,
Right.
if they like
The
fix the formatting, it doesn't come back to us to be approved like the proper indentation.
I mean, when you look at the clean section 1.3 and clean section 1.5, you know, the 1.3 looks like I think it should. The 1.5 clean section looks,
Because that second line from all of them are not
yeah, it all
indented to where the first line
jumbled
starts.
around, and,
Yeah,
you know, that's,
so again, I agree with the text. I struggle with.
that probably is the most important part.
I agree, but I struggle with, you know, is throwing this out into the code as.
How about we
is.
approve it, and then when Carla gets it done, then we can send it to you to proof, and then
So
you can.
even to getting it to look like this was hard. They're
understand.
having to basically take everything and put it in a new document, because this is still like the 93 word.
Yeah.
You could approve it subject to.
Well, I don't want to be the delay here, it's just
Can we just say that we're approving the content and the formatting? We're
Yeah.
optimistic that the formatting will be done well?
Yes.
I think that's fair. What I'd hate to see is, you know, 10 years later, right, the
It's still the
thing
same.
never got fixed and it still looks like.
Sure.
yeah, I mean, the fonts are inconsistent and, you know, yeah.
I can see if they have gotten through a section or two already and see if Kate, she's on vacation this week, to see if she can get those into that correct formatting before it goes to council. But it goes to council, if we approve tonight, it'll go to council the 15th. But before the final one gets put in, I can see if she can help get that formatted correctly.
Yeah, I'm advocating for that, you know, because, you know, coulda, shoulda, woulda doesn't always come to fruition, I guess. So I'd like to see it fixed. Words, absolutely supportive of.
It's been that way for many years, it's always been frustrating to read through there, but I think it's great that they're finally cleaning it up, so.
Yeah, monumental task, I understand, but.
I don't know if this is formatting or content, but in 3.3, the numbers go 1, 11, 3, 4, 5.
In which one again?
So one was probably added. I will get that
The
changed. before it
truck
goes to
gardening and
council.
nursery is 11.
Well,
I
that's,
believe it's 1,
that's,
1.
that's a different way to put Roman numeral 2.
That's really cool. I will get that fixed before council.
Nitpicky.
Yep.
Yeah.
To a degree, if I had more time, 100%, I would like to see it all
Oh,
get
I
corrected for
understand.
that.
Sure.
Totally understand.
It's always better to find it now.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess I would move that the sections, and I'm referring to the clean sections, be recommended for approval, subject to formatting corrections. The word, I don't know how to put it, the words are okay, but the formatting needs to be made consistent with the whole book.
Okay, but subject to suggests that it has to be done before it goes to the city council. I don't think it's our role to tell Kate she has to have that done. I don't know what her workload is, and I'd rather see it get approved, even with the messy formatting.
Well, and that's what I'm getting at. I think it
Okay.
needs to be, I moved that it be approved.
Okay,
Recommended for approval to the city council. Yes.
Second.
So we got a little tidbit in there about formatting, so I'm okay with that. So, all right, all in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, that motion carries as well.
Is that painful when you can't
Make sure you get that corrected in the minutes, or we'll be talking that next meeting.
For sure, for sure.
That's
I will
formatting,
try
right?
to have minutes, all of them for the next meeting. I'll
All
try
right.
to get it all caught up.
Staff updates, section D here.
The only thing we have is commission update to council will be coming August 26th, that study session. Historically, the chair has presented I can work something out to have it, or work with you maybe before our August meeting, and then we can bring our update to our August meeting to see if anything should be added, changed, removed, things like that.
Yeah, I'll put some notes together, kind of like we did last time, let you guys kind of proof it. And you can talk about formatting it.
Maybe look
It
at it.
better be perfect. But anybody's welcome to attend that council meeting in support of the commission.
Absolutely. We had a couple people last time, I appreciate it.
Send out a thing to remind us, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say, an invite would help.
Yeah. And we'll meet ahead of that anyway.
Yeah,
in
oh, yeah.
August, so, double reminders.
I'm older now, I need to have that reminder though.
All right. Anything else, Paige?
Nope, that's it.
Section H, or item H, commission updates. Super quick, well, I did notice the 2024 photos are on Beacon, of
Yes.
the aerial photos, so.
Really?
Yeah, they're updated now, you can pick 2024 photos, so
Got it.
if you guys would like, you can see those. I don't know, was that just in June? Maybe? I think it says.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was good. Anyway, that's all I have. Anybody else? No?
It's not really a planning or land use issue, but I noticed the big pre-construction conference on the Bremer Avenue Bridge was last Thursday. Has any schedule been presented to anybody yet?
Not that I have seen. We just got our City Hall insider today saying still is scheduled to happen this summer, so I don't know.
Well, Grumpy's is moving to town, I guess that's a land use issue.
Yes. Yes. Thankfully, it's in the correct land use area.
Is there a city band concert next month?
No,
Planning
no.
and zoning?
It'll be done in August.
We're done, okay.
They end the third week of July.
We want to accommodate you, We want to accommodate you,
I've only made one so far. It got rained out last week.
Anything else?
That was our next.
I move that we adjourn.
All right, thanks.
Good, we are adjourned.
No, there's one Thursday.